Career is incredibly important to me.
A remarkable guest whose expertise spans various facets of business leadership, with an impressive career journey, including roles such as Senior Area Manager at Openreach and an extensive tenure at Premier Inn Group, where she held multiple key positions such as Area Manager and Operations Manager across various London locations.
So yes, we can have companies that attract fantastic women into leadership roles, into operative, into management roles, but when they stay, that's how you know when you've had a cultural shift.
This episode, we welcome Rachel Dorovatas, the Executive Director of Industry Training and Support at Construction Industry Training Board, NI.
You are listening to the Pecha Kucha podcast.
So, Rachel, you're very welcome to the Pecha Kucha podcast, and we're recording today from CITB as well. So, thank you very much for making us
You're welcome.
feel welcome here as well. It's good to be here. It's nice to be in your home, your work home here. So, Rachel, we want to kick off. So, every podcast we start off with the same question, and that question is, what does success mean to you?
Okay, that is a tough question. I'll answer that question from a perspective of personal success. And I think by that, I mean having your own ambitions, having your own goals in life and working to achieve them. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way you expected it to. And I think success actually sometimes comes from the ability to reflect on what went wrong or what didn't go wrong. And I guess implement, different things in the future. Personally, success, my career is incredibly important to me. And, if you've had a look at my CV already, which you probably have, my career has been something that I guess I've aspired from a very young age. I knew I wanted to work in business. That was, I guess, goal number one. Well, goal 1.1 was to be a helicopter pilot, but we'll not go there.
Okay, interesting.
I knew I wanted to work in business, and I've just had this ladder of goals throughout my entire career. For example, the recent one that I succeeded in, I knew that I wanted to be an exec director before 40. We won't go there. Don't ask a lady how old she is, but I did achieve that one.
Excellent.
Here I am in CITB. I'm part of the exec team here, and my next goal in life is to become a board member. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, alongside, I guess, some other goals.
Yeah,
so
isn't that interesting as well that you've achieved so much? But when we're talking about success, there you are in this high position, and you still have that next step in mind that you want to work towards as well. So like it does leave that question mark around success. Does it in many ways?
Yeah, I guess, from the role that I do and from the roles that I've done in the past, high performing teams never stop. They never rest on their laurels. And I think that sits alongside with great leaders that I have worked with in business as well. They never stop. They always look for the next opportunity. And I think that's what the epitome of success is.
Yeah. And a key area you mentioned there as well early on was the reflection piece. And I think that's a major part of it, isn't it, as well, in terms of the direction of travel that you're going to take?
Yeah. Self-awareness and the ability to self-reflect, I think, are two things that I would say are attributes that I have, but also attributes that I think are important in leadership and are important in personal growth and development.
Yeah. And I just showed, you said earlier on, Rachel, we've probably had a look at your CV. You're correct, we have. We've investigated you. Early on in your career, so you started off your studies and your first job roles looking at the sort of the leisure and tourism side. Mm-hmm. What led you into that path early on?
I don't know how far back you want to go with this. When, I went to school in Ballymoney on the North Coast.
Right.
I had completed my GCSEs, and I think there was such a high expectation that I was going to go off and do A-levels. But at that point, I knew that I wanted to do something different, just something different. And I guess it was leading me down a path of going into education. And I went to college on the North Coast and studied travel and tourism management. I went to university, as you know, and studied international tourism management. And there was just something so interesting about tourism. You know, tourism, it's fantastic in so many ways. And what I was particularly interested in was, I guess, the role that government and public sector play in tourism and how that can be developed. And of course, in Northern Ireland, we are hugely proud of, you know, being the hospitable nation that we are. There are many great attractions on the North Coast, you know, the Giant's Causeway. We have a great golfing industry, film industry now, for example. Tourism is just such a fascinating topic, you know. Yeah.
It can be so wide ranging as well, can it? And you know, one of the things that we always talk about. So I have a background with hospitality and leisure as well, and one of the things that we would always kind of say is that anybody sort of for any role that you're going to take, you need to kind of be in those types of sectors for the learnings that you get from them to help you moving forward. For you, do you sort of feel that you've taken anything from those days of working with tourism into your roles now? Has it contributed to that for you?
Yeah, definitely. After graduating, I got into hospitality and started my career with Premier Inn and was there for over 10 years. Hospitality is hard. It's really hard. Even when you're in leadership positions, you know, I guess you've got this acute awareness that the people that you're responsible for are also working really hard. It's long hours, it's hard graft, but it is one of the most rewarding industries that is out there. It's I think in terms of what I have brought from Premier Inn into OpenReach into CITB, I guess so many of my learnings have come from leadership in tough times.
Yeah.
You know, and there are lots of ups and downs that happen in hospitality. It's unpredictable. You're dealing with thousands and thousands of guests walking into hotel rooms on a daily basis. All sorts of things can happen, and it's unpredictable, but it is brilliant whenever you see guests leaving your hotels and they've had a great time.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic satisfaction, that isn't it? That to know that all the hard graft that you put in, there's success at the end because these are shaping people's experiences. You know, if they may be away with family or whatever the case may be, this is a big experience for them. But like you said, there's so many challenges within that industry as well. And I'm sure through your career, you've faced many different challenges. You're now in the position executive director at CITB. What kind of challenges have you faced here? What will be the sort of greatest challenges you've faced in your role now? And maybe is there a connection from those days in hospitality that's helped you to work through that?
Challenges, I think, in CITB, the construction industry, as you know, is very fluid. You know, it relies fundamentally on investment, you know, in infrastructure projects, in construction. It's incredibly difficult to predict, which makes my role very difficult because the skills, the learning, the training needs and the volume of people behind those that skills gap sometimes is also very difficult to predict. I guess one of the big challenges, we've got lots of small niche areas in construction. So, for example, glass and glazing, the roofing sector, heritage sectors, for example. And those sectors within the construction industry in Northern Ireland are so small. You're very often than not dealing with only a handful of employers working within those fields. And when they are struggling to recruit talent, to train and develop talent, you know, it's my instinct to be able to want to help all of those sectors all at once. And the tough bit about my job is making the right decision on where we invest some of our training and partnership funding sometimes and going down the right path so that, yes, of course, I want to solve the problems that sectors are facing now, but sometimes actually it's a tough decision to actually solve problems that will be coming up in the future so that we're always ahead of the game.
Yeah, so in some ways maybe you feel like you're doing well given the one area, but another area is kind of suffering in a sense for that. And I only realised through doing the research how wide it actually is for CITB as well, because I think when we think construction, we're thinking about building sites, and that's really where your mindset goes. And when I was looking into like the heritage side of things, and I was really actually surprised to sort of see all those different types of projects. So we can see where that would be a huge challenge. But obviously with that as well, you've lots of positives coming through that. What kind of initiatives do you feel have really worked well for you in CITB?
Personally, that I have worked on,
Yeah, whatever sort of comes first. What's the sort of big ones that come to mind straight off?
I am so fortunate. Part of my role looks after our training and partnership funding. And that funding is so broad and so varied because we're trying to tackle so many different needs in the construction industry. So last year, one of my projects was our Women in Plant training program. The clue is in the title. The plant industry, I guess, is quite obviously dominated by males. You know, for lots of different reasons. It's not very often that you would see a female crane driver or a female dumper truck driver or a female fork truck driver. Things are changing though. The industry, those stats are shifting, which is great. But what we wanted to do in CITB was actually to pump prime and give women an opportunity to actually learn in a safe environment, in an environment surrounded by other women, so that they could connect with each other and learn together. And that training program, we put through 12 women to get the opportunity to get 2 different plant licenses, to have the training and go off and inspire other people to do the same. And that, I think that for me was one of the most proudest projects I think we've run in CITV personally in the last 12 months.
Brilliant. And again, it's that sense of achievement as well. And these are the things that keep us motivated in the role. And one of the points you came to there, Rachel, was really interesting in terms of being around other women. And obviously within leadership, that psychological safety is really important. So it's great that you have that in play. Do you feel that is there a shift in this happening in terms of women coming into construction? Now, are you seeing a huge shift, or is it slow moving?
Huge shift. I mean, if you're to look at stats going through over the last couple of decades, the numbers are really starting to see quite an exponential growth in the last 5 to 10 years, which is exciting. You know, the Office for National Statistics, for example, published quarterly results, and we've gone from 13% of women working in construction to all of a sudden 14% to all of a sudden 15%. That's quite a rapid growth in terms of, you know, percentages. Mm-hmm. You know, things really are changing, and it's down to, you know, it's down to many factors. Society, I think, is changing, you know, those societal norms, the understanding across organizations that actually diversity and inclusion directly impacts productivity and profitability in their businesses. You know, it's a win-win. And of course, the great work that organisations like CITB do. We have a Women in Construction network with almost 200 members, both women and men. You know, it's important, of course, that we think about allies. This year, we had our Women in Construction Network Summit, which was incredible, you know, and those opportunities to give women that psychological safety, as you say, to come, to develop, to grow, to network, be the best version of themselves is really important for the construction industry.
Yeah, and it's great to see it in action as well, because obviously there was a lot, I think for a long period of time, and we work in management and leadership, and I think for a long period of time, inclusion was a tick box type exercise. So that's just make it look as if we're doing the right things. And I think organisations are shifting that mindset. Are you seeing that through organisations as well, that although you're obviously putting the work in maybe the back end, I suppose, although it is in the front, but you know what I mean? Are organisations shifting with you as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I think if I'm to be skeptical, if we were to go back 10 years, lots of different organizations, not just in construction, but across lots of different industries, were perhaps guilty of doing the tick box. Yeah. Things have completely changed. And I see that through conversations that I observe. You know, I spend a lot of time with lots of different construction companies, lots of different construction leaders, you know, on a weekly basis. And things are changing. And you can tell that from those behaviours of leaders, how they're interacting with each other, the types of activities they're doing to ensure that diversity and inclusion actually is sustainable within their organisations. Yeah. You know, and we can see those in statistics around retention of women in construction. So that's another area that is incredibly important. So yes, we can have companies that attract fantastic women into leadership roles, into operative, into management roles. But when they stay, that's how you know when you've had a cultural shift in the industry. And we're seeing those stats. And that's good for the construction industry because, you know, in the next 4 years, we need to attract and retain 5,200 construction workers in Northern Ireland alone. You know, that's a lot.
Yeah. So you have to start opening the door to different areas. And I was at an event recently, actually, and it was more third sector focused, and there was 4 ladies on the stage kind of talking around a lot of these challenges. And I think just from some of the activities, and you can see you're passionate about it when you start talking about it, some of these activities, you know, I can sort of see where the link is and where these would really make people feel, I suppose, part of a different environment that they haven't had an opportunity to be in before. And there's still lots of challenges to come, and a lot of it's going to come from government perspectives as well, the different changes in law and stuff for organisations too. But it's fantastic to see the moves that you're making on this as well. So brilliant. So well done on that. I think it's a fantastic achievement. So these are we've talked around the sort of the challenges and the strengths around the workplace, Rachel. But I want to kind of get to know a bit more about yourself and your sort of your past, and even sort of delving into the some of your experiences within management. So what kind of roles did you have before CITB? So you were in the Premier Inn. What was the role within Premier Inn and Openreach, for example?
So when I left Premier Inn, I was an area manager in central London. I had, when I left, had 16 hotels, 16 of Premier Inn's largest London hotels as an area manager. It was absolutely one of my favourite jobs. I think because at that point I was leading leaders. You know, the individuals that were running those businesses were at the top of their game, and to have an opportunity to, I guess, lead one of the most important businesses for Premier Inn, i.e. their central London portfolio, was just incredible, really incredible. I learned a lot about leadership. I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about how to lead leaders, which is a very different skill set in itself. And at that point, I knew that I wanted to go and do something completely different. And I was really on the search to look at different industries, considered going into the gym and leisure industry. And I started to think about construction. And that's how I ended up in telecoms in Openreach, something completely different. But, you know, the concept of leading leaders, whether that's in hospitality and Premier Inn or whether that's in Openreach, you know, there are so many transferable skills, you know, and I share that anecdote now to encourage people to think about coming into construction later in life, regardless of the career that they've had in the past. You know, those transferable skills are really important, and we need those in construction. So yeah, Openreach, I had a blast. So I was leading a team of managers, also area managers. At that point, I was a senior area manager, and they had teams of engineers. And it's very difficult to go into a role where, you know, you do not know much about the actual task that they're doing. That's really difficult. And that really, I guess, sharpened my leadership skills to be able to have conversations with engineers about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis and get that buy-in and lead them towards, you know, performance for the organization, essentially, is difficult, but it's not impossible. And I love that role.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing about leadership, though, isn't it, as well? You can nearly go into any environment, and as long as you have those people skills that you can lead, you can do it anywhere you want to, and it's only a matter of then just picking up and learning as you go along. And one of the interesting things I heard you saying there, you know, you'd said you took an interest in construction. Did you was there a background in the family, or because obviously we talked about the difficulties for women coming into the construction industry?
Yeah.
What led you into it then? If that, you know, there was probably a barrier there at that point.
Yeah, I guess you know, of course, we usually cite our parents. You know, when we reflect back on our careers, my mum had worked in hospitality, so you can see where I got that from.
Yeah.
My dad is a businessman. You know, he had a really successful business on the North Coast, and then went back to his roots and had his own business in construction. You know, and from a very young age, you know, I've traipsed around builders, merchants, and B&Q, and have been, you know, in his workshop, in his garage, and have been surrounded by that. So there's probably always been a natural interest about, you know, tough, mucky, dirty jobs that's piqued my interest at some point.
That's interesting that the dirty jobs are piquing the interest, and that probably comes a lot from the hospitality side as well, because with that you're obviously you're you're stuck in the
Oh
whole
yeah.
time. You're always involved in something, no matter what role you're in. There's no there's no seniority
Yep.
in that. And I suppose then from then, so that's a long period of time. Have you seen much change in the construction industry from the point where your dad was in that industry to this point now?
Yeah, gosh, there have been so many changes. I guess that, for example, the roles that my dad do, he's in property maintenance. Things have really changed in terms of, and we see this in stats where we look at the labour requirements in Northern Ireland. So, for example, repairs and maintenance, DIY from, in private homes, for example, those stats have gone up and down through the years. We've obviously, been in a period of virtual recession recently with the cost of living crisis, with inflation. That has meant that private homes have scaled back the amount of DIY and the amount of development that they're doing in their own homes. And that has a direct impact on the availability of labour and resource. So those changes we see in cycles across the construction industry, which I said earlier can make my job really difficult whenever I'm supporting organisations, when I'm talking to, the universities to further in higher education, to help them to make sure that they're churning out the right volume of talent going into the industry. We don't want to encourage labourers and carpenters to get into roles only to find that they're struggling to find work. Yeah. There's a real fine balance in the construction industry.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of the work that you guys are doing, which I thought was brilliant as well. For CITB bringing in like school groups and things like that as well, and a lot of that. I think that's fantastic because thinking back to myself, I only ever seen university. There was no other option from where I was sitting in it. When I was looking back on that, I thought that was really good to see that these kids had that opportunity to go in and experience that. And some of them might think it's fantastic, some of them might not like it, but at least it helps their decision making process kind of moving forward. So you're getting the right people into the industry who have an interest from early on as well.
Yeah.
Has that been would that be a successful project that you would have? You would see a bit of a pipeline coming through from it?
Absolutely. I think the traditional view of careers engagement in schools over the last 20, 30 years has rapidly shifted. When you have pupils who are in the third and fourth year at school, it's at that point that careers starts to become a thing. I think what we've learned in the industry is we need to talk to school children way earlier than that, to give them confidence and an understanding of what construction actually is. You said earlier, when we think about construction, we think about bricklayers, maybe joiners at a push. But my goodness, there are hundreds of thousands of roles available in construction that some people don't even think about. And it's important actually that we as CITB play a big role to encourage young people at the right age to think about construction. So when they get to a point when they're choosing their GCSEs, or even when they're going into first year at school, they see design and technology as something really exciting that might grow into a really exciting career in the future.
Yeah, and even the programs that you have, I've seen the one that was like a 22-week program, which was a combined kind of effort as well. And it's quite good to see industry coming together as well to support kids into or I suppose young learners maybe coming through, so that they can get to experience all the different aspects of it. So you're not coming to it with the mindset that I maybe came in before this, if I'm being honest, that it was a building site. And I think that's a natural way to go. So moving forward, what do you see as the future in terms of construction? Is there a sort of positive trend or concerning trends that you maybe see going forward?
As I've said earlier, construction is very difficult to predict. It's not impossible. It's very difficult to predict. We're fortunate in Northern Ireland. The executive are back. There is a lot of discussion around infrastructure projects that's needed in Northern Ireland, be that water, energy, utilities, green energy and utilities. We know that there's a massive pipeline that will probably exist in the country for the next 20 to 30 years, if not beyond. The technology even beyond that and the investment beyond that, we don't even know what that exists. So I can't tell you what we're going to be doing in 30 years. I do know that in the next 20 to 30 years, Northern Ireland construction companies are going to be incredibly busy with those infrastructure projects. Yeah. We couldn't have predicted the massive boom in the film industry, for example, in Northern Ireland. And from a construction perspective, I don't even think we saw that on the horizon at all. The amount of labourers, joiners, carpenters who are incredibly busy in that sector alone, building film sets, scaffolders even have been really busy with that type of work. That's just incredible, you know, and this is how exciting and varied construction is. You know, you could be working on a set for Game of Thrones one week, or on the North Coast the next week, building a set to, you know, for some exciting film.
Yeah, and I think that answer alone just tells the story, you know, how unpredictable it actually is. Because again, film sets, it's not something you put into the construction side of things. So yeah, I can see the task that you have on your hands. So for you, in terms of goal setting, then, what would your goals be? Maybe for yourself, but also for CITB as an organisation going forward. What's the plans there then, if working within that unpredictability?
I think that's the key word, unpredictability, and from that change. CITB, as you know, as an organisation, has to roll with the tide. You know, construction changes as an industry and as a sector, and those skills and those training needs therefore grow. So as an organisation, it's really important internally that we have the ability to be agile, to grow, to develop, to change, you know, and that comes in many forms. So be it our systems that we use, for example, or our people processes, or how we structure the organisation internally, those things need to change. And for me as a leader, you know, that's a task in itself. So that's, I guess that's my challenge, to support the organisation to learn to change and do so rapidly so that we can support the needs of the construction industry as and when they need it.
Yeah. So it's for you to be comfortable in change, but also ensure that everyone else starts to become a little bit more comfortable in the uncomfortable, essentially.
And that's not, you know, that's not new to construction, and that's not a challenge just for construction. You know, globalization and the ability to be agile and change as an organization is facing every industry across the world all at the same time, you know, for many different factors.
Yeah, and that's what success is going to come from people like yourself leading the way on that. So I'm gonna go to our sort of standard type questions. So we like to end off with a couple of questions, and one of those is, we feed your information in the chat GPT, and it feeds us a question back. So I'm going to read the question exactly as it is. So this one hopefully will make sense, right? So, given your extensive experience across different industries, how do you stay adaptable for continuously grow in your professional journey? I suppose it we're still in the same line of what we talked about.
Yeah, I love that question. Well done, Chat GPT. How do I stay adaptable? I mentioned it earlier on. It's about self-awareness and personal growth and personal learning. You know, I never stop learning. As much as I don't have my head in a book at every opportunity, I do love to read, and I have read many wonderful books over the years. You know, I'll give you the list later. Professionally, I'm currently studying a postgraduate level 7 qualification, you know, which is a challenge, both, you know, to fit into work and home life. You know, there are a lot of sacrifices. I'm learning to ride a motorbike at the minute.
Interesting. Okay, that's different.
Yeah, exactly. Something a bit random to do.
Different from the helicopter.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Sideline that idea, but yeah. So in my personal and professional life, I'm just always learning, you know, and that's how you stay adaptable, and that's how you learn to be your best self so that you can be adaptable in the future.
Yeah, and I think going back from where we actually started from, as well as that reflection piece as well, the learnings are everywhere. And if you use reflection, you can create so much of that as well. It's not all books. It's sometimes the people we talk to. We love this podcast because we learn so much, because it puts us in a position, first of all, to research some areas we wouldn't ordinarily have maybe researched, but also to talk to people like yourself and see the person behind the organisation as well as learn about the organisation. And these learnings are really useful. That's why I love this so much that we do this. So the last question, we call this our finisher, Rachel. So the last question is, if you had the power to get up into Stormont tomorrow, and we were giving you some authority over the budget, what decisions would you be wanting to make?
That's a tough question. Okay, I'm going to answer this from the perspective of working in the construction industry, both as a citizen on the North Coast and as a new motorbike rider. I would invest in our roads to fix the potholes that are incredibly dangerous for me as a motorbike rider and other road users on a daily basis. Now, what instinctively I would like to say is support our health service in Northern Ireland to, you know, to be what I know it is capable of and what it once was. And, you know, I guess that's probably my real answer. And to fix the potholes.
The potholes are becoming a bigger problem, though, aren't they?
They are.
Somehow, how did they come about? I don't know. But anyway, that's a whole different story. So, Rachel, thank you very much. It's been really interesting. And, you know, as I said before about the research around CITB, I'm sort of very passionate around closing that skills gap, which is an area that you're working on. And I think you guys are doing a fantastic job in doing that. And that research has really sort of shown me how much work you're putting into it. So I think it's fantastic. So thank you for that. But thank you for today. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Pecha Kucha podcast.
Thanks for having me.